Hello and welcome. We're going to do a quick lesson on price elasticity of demand. As you can see, I created a downward sloping demand curve, which with the price up on the y-axis and quantity down on the x-axis. And I've already put in place 2 points. Point A, which has $5, they'll sell a quantity of 8, and at point B, it is at $4 and a quantity of 12. Let's first talk about why we have an elasticity and what does it mean. Well, the law of demand says that as the price of a good decreases, the quantity demanded will increase. Okay, we understand that. Then why would anybody want to raise their price? They're going to lower their sales. Well, elasticity will tell us the revenue benefits to the producer. So that's the primary reason that we're calculating elasticity. But let's first look at the formula itself. We see that the elasticity of demand is the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. And so to calculate that, we have to use what we call the midpoint formula. Now, why do we have to use a midpoint formula? Well, I don't want to spend too much time talking about that, but let me just give you a quick summary. The question is, in elasticity, we don't want to worry about, are we starting from point A and going to point B, or are we starting at point B and going to point A? Since we're calculating a percentage change, that can create some difficulty. Think about it this way. If something is 50 cents and it goes to $1, that's a 50-cent change, but it's a 100% increase. But when we go from $1 back to 50 cents, it's still a 50-cent change, but it's only a 50% decrease. And we want to take away those issues. So what we do is we use what we call the midpoint formula. And the midpoint formula is simply this. To calculate the percentage change in quantity demanded, we want to take the difference in the two quantities between those 2 points and divide it by the midpoint of those 2 points. In other words, add those 2 points together and divide it by 2, and we get the midpoint, or right halfway in between. Then we want to do the same thing for price. We'll take the difference in the two prices and we will divide it by the midpoint of those two prices by adding the two prices together and dividing it by 2, or multiplying it by 1/2, whichever way you want to look at it, same thing. So let's go ahead and look at our example. And for this example, we're going to start with point B. Again, it doesn't matter which one you start with, you just got to be consistent in using the calculation for both quantity and price. So let's start with point B, as point B being the second point. Therefore, the Q2 would be 12 because at point B, the quantity is 12. And then we want to subtract the quantity from the point that we're calculating against, which is 8. So 12 minus 8 is the difference. And we want to divide it by the midpoint between those 2 points. So by adding 12 and 8 together, that's 20. Divided by 2 is 10. So we get the difference, which is 4. And we're getting the midpoint, which is 10. So 4 divided by 10 is the numerator. See, it's not that difficult. Now let's do the denominator. We're going to take the difference in the two prices, and the difference between the two prices is 4 and 5. So 4 minus 5 gives us -1. And then we'll take the midpoint between those two prices. So 4 plus 5 divided by 2 gives us 4.5. So our calculation is 4 divided by 10 is the numerator. -1 divided by 4.5 is the denominator. So now let's just calculate. 4 divided by 10 is 0.4. -1 divided by 4.5 is -0.222 continued. So 0.4 divided by a -0.22 is a -1.8. But as we say in economics, since price elasticity of demand is always negative, we ignore that temporarily. It doesn't mean it's not important, but we just always know it's negative, so we're really looking at the value itself. So the value is a 1.8. That is greater than 1. That means it's elastic. Now let's again look and see, what does that mean? What does elastic and inelastic mean? Elastic, think of it as a rubber band. Elastic means there's more stretch to it, more variability, more differences. And so if it's greater than 1, that means that the consumer is reacting greater than, or the price has more of an effect to the consumer. And of course, if it's inelastic, it's the opposite is true. The price has less effect, or a nominal effect, or a minimal effect. In this case, 1.8 means it's elastic, meaning that the price change is really affecting the consumer, or is more affecting the consumer than another value. Okay, so what does that mean? Remember, if we are in the elastic part of the demand curve, we want to lower price, because lower price will increase revenue. Well, let's see how that works. At $5, we'll sell 8, so that's $40 in revenue. At $4, we'll sell 12. That's $48 in revenue. So what's that telling us? It's telling us the lower number is more beneficial to the producer. There's more revenue. And that's what our elasticity value is telling us. If it's greater than 1, we want to lower price. And of course, if it was less than 1, we'd want to raise price, but that's not in this particular example, but the logic still holds true. So let's just quickly summarize. Price elasticity of demand is telling us what is the effect of the price change to the consumer. How volatile is that price change? How much does that price change affect the consumer? And if it's greater than 1, we consider it elastic. And if it's less than 1, we consider it inelastic. And let's remember the formula, the midpoint formula, is simply looking at the difference between the two values, whether it's the quantity or the price. And then we're going to divide it by the midpoint of the quantity or the midpoint of the price. That will bring us to a calculation where we can calculate our elasticity of demand, and in this case our elasticity of demand is 1.8, which is elastic, which tells us we want to lower our price from $5 to $4. We want to take the lower price that's more beneficial. Hopefully you found this short video beneficial, and hopefully it helped explain just a little bit more price elasticity of demand.